didn't know they were going to have to.
I never dreamed I'd be raising my children alone. I never, ever dreamed it.
Yeah.
And yet, because of matters beyond my control, here I am. And I've been doing that for the past 7 years at least now. And it's just the grace of God who helps me every day.
Yeah.
Every day I have to depend on Him, because when you don't have that male authority in the home, maybe some of you single moms out there can relate to me, but it's just different. When I tell my son to do something, it's different coming from mom than it would be from dad. And these are the things we deal with on a daily basis. But, you know, God is faithful. And as I just throw myself on His mercy and ask for His help, He comes through. And not only that, but He sends other people to help, and builds a support system around us that kind of fills in the gaps and takes up the slack. So
how do we know what God's preparing those kids for? You
that's
know,
right.
It's a real reality in our society today
It
probably
is.
half of the kids being raised are being raised without a dad in the house.
That's right. That's right.
And it's a hard thing to have to face, but yet God has put you in touch with a lot of people that you might not have really been able to relate to.
That's right. I never would have known what they were going through, and I think a lot of people don't if they have never walked there themselves. And so one of my biggest dreams is to, at some point in my life, be able to really bless a single mom in different ways, and just because I know I've been there and I know the realities of it, and how difficult it is to do it all. To take care of a household, to work all day and come home and take care of your kids, and just the weight of responsibility to make all the decisions, and it's up to you. So you know, I think it's good for us, not in just that area, but in other areas that we may not be familiar with, to be sensitive to others' needs, you know, and especially as moms.
Yeah, and if you are a mom today and you have a husband at home, really think about those that don't, because, you know, I have a husband who works 3 or 4 nights a week, and I remember when my children were little, and sitting in a rocking chair with them and thinking about all the things that I should be doing around the house that I couldn't do, and not really totally regretting it, but also really looking forward to when he would get home so I could hand the child over and be able to have a little time to, you know, get the dishes done and do the things, the laundry, the folding, and all the things that needed to be done that I hadn't been able to do. And, you know, for some people that never happens. You know, the man never does come home, and that opportunity to hand that child over for a little while never comes. And so
it's such a luxury. I remember when the kids were, you can probably remember this, when they were little, just to go to the grocery store and not have to bring the kids when they were toddlers, you know.
Right. Well, you spent about half as much money, for one thing,
that's
when
right.
they didn't go.
But just keeping track of them, and, you know, if they misbehave or whatever, then they're screaming and you're embarrassed. And but, you know, if you're a single mom, and it'd be such a blessing to have someone say, well, I'll just take the kids for a few hours while you go run errands, something like that, you know. It's just a huge thing to someone like that.
And even after they're older, too, you know, the needs don't change, and you become more, maybe more grown up yourself and more mature and experienced at being able to handle it if you've been doing it for a while, but yet that doesn't change the kids' needs for other, you know, influences, and for that, you know, that knowledge that other people are really there for them and are interested in them. And
I see a lot of, because my son is 15 now, I'm around a lot of guys that age, and I see a lot of kind of lost young guys, you know, because there aren't dads in the homes, and they either gravitate towards one another and move in packs, or they just kind of do things that aren't so good, you know. They get lost, and they desperately need that male mentorship. And so, you know, those are all things that I think we just need to be aware of if we're not in that situation. We really need to raise up that generation and fill in the gaps for those that are weak, and help one another, you know, just wherever it is. And there's a lot of people that are married, women that are married to husbands that aren't good husbands and good fathers. You know, they're married, but they're not doing what they should be doing. And so we need to be sensitive to that also.
Yeah.
You know?
That's right.
They're not all like Jeff.
Yeah, they're not all like my husband. Perfect in every way. Even if you have a husband that helps, you still feel overwhelmed. You know that there are times of our life when we just feel like we're not enough. We don't have enough. We can't do enough, and you know, we really would like to have some relief. And God can make a way for that. He can give us, you know, the relief that we need, and He is there for us. He says in His Word that He gives rest to those He loves, and I used to think, doesn't He love me? I'm so tired. But
yeah.
you know, we have to kind of take
I still
control.
have some of those days.
Yeah, I still do too.
I know you do.
But we have to take control of that ourselves too, and we can kind of get lost in the shuffle of our lives without really having to, if we don't say, well, you know what, I'm going to start going to bed at 8 o'clock, or not 8 o'clock,
Yeah.
I'm going to go get 8 hours of sleep at night.
Right.
That's my goal these days, is to get 8 hours of sleep. And I'm not quite there yet, but you know, after several years of only getting 3, 4, or 5, and I'm really making progress by even thinking about trying.
You've got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, I do. But you know what? I can see the benefits so much
Yeah.
of when I do get a good night's sleep.
Sleep is so important.
It's very important.
Yeah.
It's important to our mental health.
It is.
Of just feeling like we can make it, you know. That's one of the practical things that you can do if you're feeling overwhelmed by your circumstances and like you can't make it. Try to get more sleep, and if you're feeling overwhelmed or maybe ungrateful even for the children that you have, remember people like us that didn't think we were ever going to get any, and people, you know, who maybe have them but they are challenged and handicapped, and they have to do a lot of things that the average mom doesn't have to do, and God is doing something special in all of our lives. And you know, there are people who sometimes talk to me as though I've got it easy in my life. You know, well, you just don't understand because, you know, you got a husband and he works full time, and you know, you don't have the problems that I have. But you know what? I think each one of us has our own path that God has intended for us to work out to become that pure gold that He wants us to be. And for me, it might be one thing, and for you, it might be another. But you know, because you're dealing with something that seems unique to you doesn't mean that your way is harder than another person's way. You don't know what some people are going through that maybe they haven't
You've
brought
dealt
up.
with a lot of physical problems that others don't have to deal with.
Yeah, a lot of things that don't show on the outside, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, we all have those things that we have to deal with, and that really work the goal that God wants to have us become. And so we shouldn't really, you know, just give in to weakness and all the things that are in our life, because I don't think He intends for us to do that. But I think He gives us hard situations to allow us to have the opportunity to draw from that well of faith that's in us and put it to work and to use in regard to the challenge that we're facing, and to see what His Word has to say about our situation, and to find the strength and help and hope that we need by looking into His Word and seeing what is there that can bring us through. And we want to close with a declaration today. Joanne, why don't you do that? I've talked a lot. Why don't you why don't you make the declaration today?
Well, I declare that I am just going to speak positively about my own situation and just claim the promises of God regardless of how I feel, and over my family, over my children, especially as a mother, that God will fill in those gaps when I need help, and that He will come through for me like He says He will in His Word if we just believe. All we have to do is believe. He just wants to be believed, and then just watch what will happen. And that's the hardest thing. It's the simplest thing to say, but the hardest thing to do sometimes. Yep. And so as we declare His Word and His promises, that is where we're going to see Him come to our defense and do things that you just wouldn't believe could happen. He's done it for me, and I know that if He does it for me, He can do it for you. And that's why we just want to share with you and just help you to live that full life that I know is available in Jesus Christ.
Declare something radical for yourself today and put God to the test and see what He'll do. God bless you. See you next time.